If you're talking about it, I'll be talking about it. Dennis Prager here. Join me this morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy, coming to you live from Honest One Auto Care in Aurora, part of our AM 560 Signature Bank Business Tour. And just talking, we talked earlier and with Noah Rothman about that bizarre Hillary Clinton interview at that India Today conclave where she talked about the only reason somebody voted for Trump and the reason she lost, of course, had nothing to do with her. We know that. But you fit into three categories if you're a Trump voter. You either don't like that black people have rights. You don't like
racist.
that. Yeah. Don't like that women have jobs.
Sexist.
Right. Or you're a woman who was bullied by the men in your life. You're a victim of patriarchy. Those are the only possible buckets of Trump voters.
Well, she took deplorables to a whole new level.
She really did. And it's not only her. April Ryan, a card-carrying member of the D.C. press corps.
Oh, yeah.
She was on CNN yesterday. It's just these bizarre statements. They're kind of victimology non sequiturs contained in some description of Trump rally. She's still talking about the Trump rally from Pennsylvania over the weekend,
from Saturday night.
And listen to what, because her freedom of the press is under attack and so forth. Listen to this.
This is someone who has the power of life and death in his tongue and in his pen, and also the fact that people will turn on the press in a moment's notice. So this is not shtick. This is real for us. And we are covered by the founding fathers, these white men who covered all of us, not knowing that there would be social media or people like us covering the White House. So this is a dangerous game.
We are covered by these founding fathers, the white men who covered us with. I don't. What do you understand what she's saying?
I'm lost.
All right. Well, I'm lost by all of this, which is why we have Grover Norquist to help us suss some of it out. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, joins us now. Grover, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.
How important is today's special election in Pennsylvania, where Trump was over the weekend rallying the troops? How important is Trump's very aggressive, some would argue, myself included, protectionist stand on trade for not only just success today, but for holding majorities in Congress in November?
That's a very interesting question. One, we're going to have a very tough set of races for control of the House this November, whether we win in Pennsylvania, the Republicans win the House seat, or lose it. So it doesn't change anything from that perspective. What it does do is, if Republicans win, it says, guys, go out and hustle, see it works. If they don't win, guys, go out and hustle more. So it's really the same message either way. I mean, this is a seat that Trump won by 20 points, and on a good day, we're going to win it narrowly. And on a bad day, we lose it. It is a House seat we should not be losing. I've heard the argument that our candidate is not terribly exciting. The other candidate's young and aggressive, and they get a veteran who's a Bolshevik, and then people are supposed to vote for him because he's a veteran. So this is a particularly important race just for the optics of how it looks. Now, the question of what happens with protectionism. The president went up and said, I'm going to put a tax on incoming steel and aluminum in order to make all of our cars more expensive and non-competitive with German and Japanese and Korean and Swedish cars. And so the challenge is that protectionism is a very bad economic policy. It does great damage to every industry that uses steel. And you've seen the numbers, 6 million people work in companies that use in businesses that use a lot of steel, and 100,000 or 200,000 people make steel in the United States.
Yeah, and if we can't outcompete the Swedes producing the Saab, then we're in we're in more trouble than just steel prices.
Yeah. So, but when you raise the price of steel, you make all of your cars less competitive, not non-competitive completely, but less competitive than they were otherwise. So now the other challenge with protectionism is that it is a tool or a weapon that should be a last choice. What did the president do? He cut corporate taxes for every American business, for steel manufacturers, for auto manufacturers, for people who make buildings with steel, for people who make aluminum cans. When you cut taxes across the board, the entire set of industries, the entire country benefits. He has helped by giving us judges that won't let the trial lawyers get away with murder, and good judges with rule of law and property rights and contract law and reasonable labor law is good for all industries. And then he's expanded our opportunities to get more and better and less expensive energy here in the United States. That's good for all industries. It's good for the steel people. It's good for people who use steel. So if you've got tools that can help steel and the auto industry and steel users and people who use aluminum, why not focus on those? Okay, and they're working, by the way. We cut taxes, the whole economy is growing. Oh, and deregulation, which is so you got deregulation, you got tax cuts, you got serious energy expansion, and you have good judges. Those four things are good for all businesses. Why would you turn around and pick up a stick, which is only good for helping, raising the price of steel manufactured in the United States? So that helps steel manufacturers at the expense of everybody else in the country. Every consumer,
right, because eventually the consumers are going to have to pay for it. But Grover, we're learning this morning that Larry Kudlow is possibly going to replace Mr. Cohen, Gary Cohen, as an economic council advisor. But he's against the tariffs as well. Do you think he would be able to get into President Trump's head about how bad tariffs are?
I think the president has had the position that tariffs are a tool that can be used, and only poking oneself in the eye with them is going to teach one that it's not a good idea. It is so attractive at one level. Well, that solves that problem, right? But then you forget that there's secondary effects. It's not because the other team gets an at-bat. You're not the only team that gets to hit the ball. Then the Europeans turn around and say, oh, did you do this to our steel? Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to raise tariffs on your agriculture, on your citrus. And they're picking things that are in states that are important to Trump. So he's hurting a trade war. The other team decides where to hit you back, and they can do it to be most damaging. So it's a problem. We're just going to have to work through it. Now, to be fair to the president, maybe he's just trying to get the attention of the Chinese and say, guys, we need you to rethink some of your tariff and non-tariff barriers to our stuff. And the Chinese did do this thing where every province out there decided to build a steel mill because, there was the government and the money was free. So they have all this overcapacity. I don't think it's a dirty trick. I think it's a misallocation of resources on their part. They're not making money at this, which is why
Grover, as someone who has watched many presidential administration come and go, one of the stories the D.C. press corps is spinning now is a White House and an administration in chaos. You see departures, you see public spats between the president and his attorney general, between the president and his now outgoing Secretary of State. Amy mentioned the pending replacement of Gary Cohen. Is this just the normal turnover in any presidential administration, and we are purposely not using our institutional knowledge, or are you concerned about the pace of turnover in the Trump administration?
It's more than usual, but it's not debilitating or anything. We have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican administration. That's stability. That's why holding the Senate, we're going to pick up an additional 4, maybe 5 Senate seats this fall, largely because the Democrats decided to attack the Second Amendment and to insult 17 million concealed carry permit holders. I mean, people forget that there's 17 million Americans with a concealed carry permit. You don't have a lot of that in Chicago, but the rest of the country, about 7% of the country has a concealed carry permit, 7% of adults. So when the D's go and attack that, it makes it tough to carry Montana. It takes it tough in Indiana, where 10% of the population has a concealed carry permit. Missouri, North Dakota, West Virginia, Florida. I mean, these are very, very interesting states, but circling back to what we started with, the House races are key. I was talking to McCarthy, the lead Republican, on managing the House races, the Republican leader in the House. And he says, look, if we can break the Democrats this year, if we hold the House, the Ds will never see the House again for a long, long time. And they know that, and we know it. So everybody's out, well, wearing the uniforms and going to be playing very, very hard. So people need to remember to vote. And the president has accomplished a great deal of what he had hoped to accomplish in a 4-year term. That tax reform and tax cut that the House and Senate passed was not a 20. We didn't cut the business rate to 25. We cut it to 20. That was Trump. Trump was the one who drove that down to 2021, and that makes us so much more competitive than we were before. It is worth. The stock market went up by 1/3. There's a reason for that. There's some real progress there. The deregulation stuff. We have to do entitlement reform, and we probably don't get to do that unless we hold the House and the Senate. Right. And then we need to do for Medicaid and food stamps what we did during the Clinton years on welfare. I would just block grants it out to the states and let the states do some serious fighting against fraud and focusing on people who really need the help rather than who don't. So I think we're in good shape. I think Larry Kudlow would be a wonderful pick, extremely helpful. I thought the world of Gary Cohn. I thought he did a very good job as well.
All right. He is Grover Norquist. He's the president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, thanks as always for joining us, providing your insights. Appreciate it.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.